night a DJ saved my life. Last night a DJ saved my life, yeah.
Remixing is taking the original mix of the record, which is lacking in something, and creating a better mix for it. That may mean more accessible to the radio in terms of rock mixing. The drums aren't strong enough, the guitar's not loud enough. Or in the term of dance mixing, making it more danceable, making whatever is popular that day, whether it is loops, as it is now, or heavy beats, as it was a few years ago, or loud vocals and strings, as it was when it began, beefing that up a bit, making it more accessible, making the mix extended, making it longer.
Bruce Forrest, legendary New York DJ and remixer, is a veteran of the trade. He's been involved in remixing since its early days.
Man, what you gonna do now? What we're gonna do right here is go back. How far you going back? Way back. As we go a little something like this. Hit it!
Remixing began with Tom Moulton doing massive amounts of edits on Love Is the Message and creating the idea of the modern dance remix. Tom and a lot of DJs in those days, Walter Gibbons, T. Scott, Larry Levan, even the early days, didn't play 12-inch records. They had 7-inch records and terrible little turntables, no pitch control, nothing like that. So it wasn't easy for them to do. One, the size of the record was too small to do anything creative with. So the 12-inch idea came about. But before that, they needed an extended mix. So they would extend the intro a little bit. They would extend the breaks. They would make the actual record a bit longer. Love Is the Message was a short little track on Philly International, and it's by MFSB. I have a 7-inch that's from '75, which I'm pretty sure was the original 7-inch. And it had these very little girl vocals on it. And most people who know the record intimately don't know the vocals, because most of the bootlegs and mixes that have been done on it just eliminate those vocals completely. I'm sure then edited those sections together, created a huge long ending. To this day, when you go into an underground club in New York, sit around long enough and you will hear that version of Love Is the Message. I won't say in those days was to rearrange it. In other words, instead of having all the stuff going all the time, he would say, well, I'm going to bring it just down to drums here and have a little break going. Hence the break beats that we use now on every other record. Then I guess it came around a few years later that somebody, either Shep Pettibone, Steve Thompson, or possibly Francois Kevorkian, decided, well, I think I can get a better drum sound than this guy originally did. And got out the first drum machines, the Linn drum and the, maybe he had a real drummer do it, I don't really know. But they went back in and they said, we can get a better drum sound. They did what was called an overdub. And they would do 1 or 2 tracks of overdubs, and it would create a new sort of sound for the record. And then they'd go back to the other thing. Let's push the drums up. Let's push the tambourine up. Let's go back down to drums here. It has grown and grown and grown until now it is considered standard for a DJ to literally strip the track to nothing. The masters of today, the Dave Morales' Frankie Knuckles, walk in, listen to the track, and usually will pull everything down except the vocal and reproduce it. And now, I mean, that has gone about as far away from original remixing as you can. They're producers. The only reason they're not called producers is because the record company would then have to give them production points. The golden age of interesting musical techniques was probably the early 80s. When you wanted a string section, you went and hired a string section. You had to call up the A&R guy and go, hey, I need $4,000 to hire a string section, and you better like that idea. And I think that remixers had to be a lot more musical then. Luckily for me, you can get away without being a musician now. You can do some really interesting things just by ideas. The technique has changed substantially, And I think that it's getting more and more easy for someone to just go and do it at their house.
Tank fly, boss walk, jam, nitty gritty. You're listening to the boy from the big bad city.
This is Norman Cook.
I mean, one interesting thing I've noticed is a lot of remixers who have just come from being DJs. They know what dance is like, they know how to construct a track, but they've got no idea of music. They couldn't construct a bass line that fitted with a vocal, and they don't understand chords and things like that, and sometimes it can be a real problem. I do understand music. I can't read music, but I understand chords and things. And I think it's probably maybe why I get a lot of work, is because people know that I've been in a pop band and I understand classic pop arrangements and chords and things like that, and I can actually work on a song that's got a tune rather than just a rap, I much prefer working on rap, though, because it's easier. You just pong them all on.
And they called it
wild and wonderful music.
Shep Pettibone is acknowledged as the world's leading remixer. When Janet Jackson or Madonna need a mix, it's Shep they call.
And you can dance for inspiration.
I began in all this by working in a record store, and it got me into wanting to be a DJ. DJs coming in all the time. I was only 16 at the time. I thought it'd be a lot of fun. I could make people dance, party, have a good time. At the time, 12-inch starting to come out, and Moulton's name was on a lot of them. He was my idol. I thought one day I'll be like this guy. I want to make records, have all the DJs know me, that type of thing. I guess my next step, working in clubs and not getting too many jobs because my music at the time was too progressive. I was bored with the songs the way they were on the record, so I took the actual music off the record, put it onto tape, re-edit it, mix in different songs with it, put breaks, and then had that transferred onto an acetate disc and play that disc in the clubs. Over very well, got me more and more jobs. Then I had a chance to do a disco lunch hour show on 92 KTU here in New York, which was the station at the time, and it got over very well. Frankie Crocker heard about it, who was at WBLS, and he wanted this concept to make his station unique, and they called these super mixes. Nobody had ever done this before. It was like, can you do this? Are you allowed to take the music off the record in the first place and re-edit it differently? But we did it anyway. And I was there for a couple of years. Then went to KISS FM. There's a new station that started here. This was in 1981. And we came with the name Master Mix. I guess at that time, certain producers such as Arthur Baker heard what I was doing on the radio, and they wanted that on their own record, the record that was going to go out to the public instead of having it done after the fact and only for the radio station. So he was one of the first people that said, Shep, come with me and let's do a record together, and this way it'll go on to vinyl that way. And so it was the beginning of something with him. And after him, more and more record companies and producers wanted it on the record that way, so they asked me in to remix songs for them. I would say that I was in the business 7 years doing this before I got a call from a major artist, and the first major artist I got was Madonna, when she asked me to do True Blue. I was thrilled. I didn't particularly like the song that much. I didn't think there was that much I could do with it, but I thought, it's Madonna. I want to do this. The whole time while I was doing the record, I was thinking, why couldn't this have been Get Into the Groove? One of my all-time favorite songs. And wouldn't you know it, 2 weeks later I get a call. They wanted to do a dance compilation mix of the Madonna songs called You Can Dance, and one of the songs they said they wanted me to do, Into the Groove. This was 2 weeks after I thought, why couldn't this have been? And I got my chance to do it then.
tonight.
It's not just dance-orientated acts like Madonna that undergo the remix treatment. Arthur Baker has remixed Bruce Springsteen 3 times.
Cover me, cover me. For Cover Me, which was the second Springsteen one, I heard the song and I really didn't like the song. And at that time, I really prided myself on not doing mixes unless I really loved the song. And I subsequently would turn down a lot of mixes. But because it was Bruce, I said, listen, let me listen to the multi-track. With Dancing in the Dark, the first time I heard it, I just knew that I wanted to mix it. This one I didn't. And I put up the tape, and as soon as I put it up and took out the bass line was like, dum, dum, dum. It was a really straight bass line. It really felt very reggae to me, just the song, and when Jocelyn's vocal, her ad-libs, and I just said, this could be a great reggae record. So I brought in this bass player who played in this group Mojo Naya, and I had him play a reggae bass line. And I really try to make the record like it was a third world record or something of that ilk. And I was very happy with how that came out because it really transformed the song. Also, Bruce ended up using my arrangement in concert. He would use like the bass and all that. And I think that was the first time anyone changed the bass line on a record.
Cover Me was the 12-inch remix version of a hit single, but some singles are remixed especially to create a hit. A prime example is Coldcut's mix of Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full.
How cold can Coldcut get?
It's a top selector.
And now, the beat is on heavy.
The project came together really because Julian Palmer, who was the A&R man at Fourth and Broadway at the time, knew Matt and I and knew that we were putting records out, and we'd put out Say Kids, we'd put out Beats and Pieces, we'd put out The Music Maker, That Greedy Beat, and he knew that those records were happening. So he took a brave decision, asked us to go in. We had no idea what we were going to do. We just, like, the basic kind of scene behind it was, can they deal with this?
And we had no instruments at that time. Now we work, with a certain amount of computers and samplers and so on, and the high-tech business, because it's quite handy. But at that time, we were working exclusively from turntables. There were a couple of toys in the studio which we used to sample the loops up. We just sampled bars of the loops that we wanted and then ran that down through the whole track and then mixed more stuff on from the turntables live. And that was really the only instruments that we used at that time.
Did their extensive use of samples from other records create legal problems?
We kind of said, that since we were getting 700 quid for it, it was their problem, and we'd been given a mandate to do whatever we wanted.
Yeah, we said to Julian when he first asked us, I said, well, you're asking us to do it, then you're going to have to accept whatever we do, and we want a free rein. We don't want to, be told, well, you've got to take this out or do that or that. We'll do it, and it's up to you whether you put it out or not. It's your responsibility. And they had to sort it out, and they did have to give Opera House a fairly large portion.
So here's the original version of Paid in Full.
A pen and a paper, a stereo, a taper. Me and Eric being a nice big plate of fish, which is my favorite dish. But without no money, it's still a wish. Cause I don't like to dream about getting paid. So I dig into the books of the rhymes that I made. So now's a test to see if I got pulled. hit the studio, cause I'm paid in full.
Akim, check this out. Yo, you go to your girl's house and I go to mine, cause my girl is definitely mad cause it took us too long to do this album.
And here's Coldcut talking us through what they did on the remix.
This is a journey into sound.
Yeah, that was a phrase off a stereo sort of test record, Introduction to the World of Stereo Sound, and I got that in Camden one afternoon. I was just looking through the bins. I thought, I wonder if this has got anything on.
This is a journey into sound.
Got it home, stuck it on the decks, and that phrase came on.
A journey which along the way will bring to you new...
That other thing, that do-do-do-do-do, that's the Salsa Orchestra from...
Love Break. Love Break.
That's it. Of course, the beat is Ashley's Roach clip.
Ready? I throw this switch. Pump up the volume, pump up the volume.
Ashley's Roach clip's more widely known as the Soul to Soul beat. And
it's Chuck Brown and the Soul Search.
Chuck Brown and the Soul Search is Ashley's Roach clip. And it was used on Milli Vanilli's record Girl You Know It's True, and we use it on Paid in Full. But enough respect to Chuck Brown's drummer. His name's lost in the mists of black music history, but it must be there somewhere.
There's, of course, Ofra Hazza there, rocking away in the background. That's from now Imane Alu.
That was amazing because we put it on and it was the wrong speed and it was out of tune. Then we just slowed it right down and it came out exactly the right speed to go over it, and the tuning was just right. Sometimes things just happen like that, in tune with the bass line and everything. It's amazing.
There's congas in there from Boogie Woogie Break, aren't there?
Yeah, Sound Experience,
Sound
Boogie
Experience,
Woogie. There's another good break. There's the other good break, which no one knows, which is... Shall we let it off? Yeah, we could do it.
Yeah, they'll never find it.
The radio one is Bang on a Drum off a Play School record. It's a seriously good... Yeah, BBC record, man. The drummer gets seriously funky at the end for about 2 bars, so he looped up part of that. That's got to be one of the most obscure breaks out, I reckon.
Quite a lot of the phrases were off tape. Tapes off the radio. That when
all is ready.
I throw the switch. That was off the radio. Some of them are Mikey Dread. Well-known Mikey Dread.
So I start my mission, leave my residence, thinking how could I get some dead presidents?
It's a funny mixture, this record, really, because the original version on the LP was it was a great groove with the serious break and the Dennis Edwards bass line, but it wasn't quite there, and we thought, well, we could make this into something really good. But I mean, it's funny, that original groove, the Dennis Edwards bass line is still massive, the break is massive, that with funky drummer, it's got to be the most popular break of the last couple of years, really.
It took us 36 hours to do this, didn't it? Put together in the studio at Banner Island Records.
It's a
marathon.
A pen and a paper, a stereo, a taper. Me and Eric being a nice big plate of fish, which is my favorite dish. But without no money, it's still a wish. Cause I don't like to dream about getting paid, so I dig into the books of the rhymes that I made. Soon as a test to see if I got pulled, hit the studio, cause I'm paid in full.
Dodgy. We spent hours trying to get out that bit, but that was it.
Sometimes you just get hung up on something, but in the end, as George Michael used to say, the kids will never know.
No, we just covered it up with a bit of echo.
Just pile the echo on.
That 1, 2, 3,
That's JB.
There he is. Mr. Brown.
And that's Hassan 711. Emotions Can Be Serious, dub mix.
By George, even London groove.
Pump up the volume, pump up the volume. Pump that bass.
Pump that bass, public. Original concept, not public enemy.
That's weird with original concept, because their record, Can You Feel It, blew us away when we first heard it, and we started trying to do something a bit like that. That was even before Beats and Pieces, wasn't it? And then Beats and Pieces, we used some little tricks from it, not actual samples, but some of the ideas, like the stab echoing away, like and then like a year later, they sample that. And they sample Greedy Beat, another of our tunes, and it comes back over here.
It's Charlie
weird
Says.
how it goes round.
Charlie Says, wasn't it?
Charlie Says, that's right.
Peach Boy Laugh.
Bernard Fowler.
Yo, you go to your girl's house and I go to mine, cause my girl is definitely mad cause it took us too long to do this album. Yo, I hear what you're saying, so let's just pump the music up and count our money. Yo, but check this out, yo, Eli. turn the bass down and just let the beat keep on rocking. And we out of here.
This stuff is really fresh.
This is DJ Cell from Bass Incorporated on the decks. He's a young scratcher we got in, a session scratcher. We had to turn the mixer upside down, didn't we? It was a weird way of doing it.
This is Fab Five Freddy, so everybody knows this. This stuff is really fresh.
Not everyone knows still where it's from. You know?
No, it's on the B side of
Change le Beat.
It's the one.
Pump up the volume, pump up the volume.
Wait a minute, you better talk to my mother.
That's a gangster record.
Okay, all right.
It was them.
Regan. Okay, all right. I take that.
Flexi.
Yeah. Oh no, it's off that Flex, isn't it?
Yeah.
Came free with, was it Raw or one of those weird magazines? Yeah. Good old Ronald.
Okay. All right.
Yo, what happened to Pete? Yo, what happened to Pete? Peace.
Another James Brown tune.
Hot Pants. What's Hua? It's free expression.
Yeah, chill out. You can really hear those congas from the boogie woogie break now. It's a good break, that, actually.
With the record. Deaf with the record. It's so fresh.
Steinsky.
Yeah. The Nightcaps.
This is the Play School one. You can just hear it dying away.
Like Coldcut, Norman Cook also started out as a club DJ.
How interesting.
Top recording artist.
How delightful.
The main squeeze of the airwaves is about to explode!
When they asked me to split up, I thought, what am I going to do now? And as for my own music, I really didn't know. I thought I'd better have a think. So I thought, meantime, I'll go back to DJing because I love playing in clubs. To me, it's a perfect sort of relaxation. So I went back to being a club DJ. And I was chatting to a friend from Chrysalis, and they said, we've got this record called I Know You Got Soul by Eric B. and Rakim. And I said, yeah, I know it. And they said, we want to re-release it and we need a remix. And they said, what do you reckon we should do? And I said, I was sort of thinking from a DJ's point of view, and I said, well, you've got the a cappella on the other side, so it'd be quite easy to remix. You could put these, you could spin other things in.
So you sit by the radio, hand on the dial soon. As you hear it, pump up the volume. Dance with the speaker till you hear it blow.
He didn't quite understand what I was on about, so he said, look, can you do us a tape? I said, well, look, I've got a 4-track at home. I'll do you a demo of it. So I did a demo of this remix and played it to them, and they said, Brill, do you want to come do it in the studio next week with Danny D? And I thought, God, yes, I'd spent 4 years trying to, become a remixer. And I suppose, because of the name of the housemates, they let me do it. It was pretty successful for the record company, so they let me do other ones, and I worked with Danny D again. I'd just like to say I learnt a tremendous amount off Danny D. Respect is due.
It's been a long time, I shouldn't have left you without a strong rhyme to step to. Think of how many weeks shows you slept through. Time's up, I'm sorry I kept you. Thinking of this, you keep repeating your miss. The rhyme from the microphone solo with. So you sit by the radio, hand on the dial soon. As you hear it, pump up the volume. Dance with the speaker till you hear it blow. Then plug in a headphone, cause here it go. It's a 4-letter word when it's heard to control your body to dance. So, dot text a tempo like a red alert. Reach it, your reflex, and let it work. When this is playing, you can't get stuck with the steps. So cassette, and I'ma still come up with a gift to be swift. Follow the leader, the rhyme will go deaf with the record that was mixed a long time ago. It could be done, but only I could do it. For those that can dance and clap your hands to it. I start to think, and then I sink into the paper like I was ink. When I'm writing, I'm trapped in between the line. I escape. When I finish the rhyme, I got soul. was empty. A beat like this might tempt me to pose, show my rings and my fat gold chain. Grab the mic like I'm on Soul Train, but I wait, cause I've mastered this. Let the others go first so the brothers don't miss. Eric B, break the sticks. You got it! Rock him will begin when you make the mix. I'll experiment like a scientist. You wanna rhyme? You gotta sign my list. Cause I'm a manifest and bless the mic I'll hold. You want an X? Then you gotta have soul.
I think Double D and Steinsky influenced a whole generation of remixers. I mean, Danny D came from the sort of old school, who were influenced by Shep Pettibone and all the classic American mixes. But, I mean, people like, I was talking to Coldcut about how when we first started, because when I first heard the first Coldcut cut-up...
Say, kids, what time is it?
I thought, brilliant, that's exactly what I've been doing, you know, even using the same bits. And they'd heard the bootleg record that I'd done, and he was saying, oh, you used all the things that I've been thinking of, you know. And there was a whole generation of sort of bedroom DJs who, were definitely inspired. I mean, Lessons 1, 2 and 3 by Double D and Steinsky basically set the agenda for that form of remixing.
Back in the club, back in the club, and you kids used to laugh at that song.
The sound of now.
There's definitely two approaches. The old school approach was just to take the track as is and edit bits of it and drop bit down to breaks and use editing effects, which is more taking out things really rather than putting them in. The new school way was to bung samples of other people's records on over the top. I think I've ended up with a mixture of both, which is probably the best way to do it, where you take the ingredients out of the track that do work, not necessarily, you know, chuck everything away apart from the vocal, which a lot of remixers do, but to take the elements of the track that work, then reconstruct another beat, and then see if there's any gaps. I don't like bunging tons of samples in. When we first started, you know, and we reached it's like, oh, that bit's brilliant, I've got to put that on a record somewhere, you know. I call it the kitchen sink method of remixes, where you bung everything in by the kitchen sink just to fill the track up, and I don't think that's necessarily the right way to do it.
The team of David Durrell and CJ McIntosh have created a string of successful remixes, and they're now ranked very highly amongst the world's best.
So, fellas, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
We first started remixing after CJ and myself had been involved with a band called Nasty Rocks. It wasn't until that came to a rather grisly end that we moved into remixing wholesale, because we decided we needed the money and it would be a good crack to actually work with some of the people we felt, you know, we really wanted to work with. And the first one we got offered was Eric B, who was a personal hero of both CJ and myself. It was a track called The R.
The R.
Never really did much in the UK. Did well in the States and Europe, but got swamped by house over here. The first remixes we had after The R really were ones that we kind of like went around begging for. Alison Williams, after I spoke to a couple of people at Def Jam, and they said, yeah, okay, have a plug at this. And we did My Love Is So Raw, which was, you know, kind of a relative commercial success, and it was top 30.
Yeah.
And from there on in, really, kind of, it was a case of going out for more. Actually, after we got our foot in the door, then it was just pushing it open. And I went to see 10 City at Town and Country, and I bumped into a guy from Big Life Records called Tim Parry, who I'd heard had just got the deal with De La Soul and was about to release the first single. And I asked him really if there was any way I could remix a track off the album called I Know, which I felt was my favourite track of all time. And he said, well, we're not sure if we're going to be releasing that because we've got a lot of legal problems, but we shall be releasing Say No Go. So, anyhow, time came, and he actually did phone back, and on A remix in. We'll often get the tape over, sit through, listen through the tape, perhaps put it on the deck and maybe play some drums over it, or listen through the bass line a couple of times, see if we can improve on that and actually maybe run down a bass line just live over the record. We keep what we feel we need. Quite often we'll scrub a lot of sounds. With regard to rhythm, sometimes we keep the bass line for the rhythm, but change the drums. Other times we'll change both. Quite often, there are sounds, maybe a keyboard line or something that we think is still quite significant, and we'll retain that. Other times we'll play that in again, maybe slightly changed or totally changed. The vocal, if anything, we do our best to keep it true to the original, if it's a good recording. Perhaps there's a standout part of the vocal that we'll sample and use again. Yeah, vocals, there's not much you can do with them. And the rest of the instrumentation, as I say, it's either good for you or it's not. Quite often, if we're to use live instruments, then we'll have to consider whether that's going to be for the main mix or whether it's going to be for an additional mix. More often the case is now that if we decide to use live instruments, it's going to be for the main mix. I think that's the only way for us that it really makes sense, with perhaps an additional track where that instrument is expanded or used even more. Again, really, we go in the studio and we do a lot of freeform stuff on it. So we've got a massive stock of samples. And I think it's always good to have space for a bit of improvisation. I think if you tend to calculate everything before you go in, then it saves time, but maybe you're not totally happy with results when you've actually lived it through. And so it's a bit like production on any record. You have to feel the track a bit. And so when we get it on the big monitors and we're bouncing about the room to it, then it starts to make sense and things just start hitting you in the head. We've had some very off-the-wall requests in the way of, would you turn this into a dance hit, please, sir? And some are quite unworkable. Others, if we'd had the time, we would have probably attacked. So you'd have seen some very interesting unreleased Teardrop Explodes remixes and various other bands. Texas, in fact, which I wish I'd done now. We didn't have the time at the latter part of last year, which was Song for Use, which didn't have any drums and wasn't really going to ever be a dance track. But I think could have actually done something in the clubs all the same, perhaps along the lines of Desire by U2 or something. I think we could have done something with that. And as I say, I wish I'd done that one. I don't know, I think, you can turn anything into dance here, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good to dance to.
Give me something to dance to.
So what are the reasons for doing a remix? Norman Cook believes there are several.
There's a lot of different reasons why you could remix a track. There's you've got a duff track that needs help. You've got a good track, but you want a dance floor side to it. You've got a good track, it's going to be a hit. You're looking for, pushing it that bit further, maybe into the top 40, so you want another angle on it. Or, the track's so big, people are bored of hearing the original version of it. And then you've got ones where, let's bung as many different versions. It's the same as bringing it out on CD, cassette, single, 12-inch, 7-inch, coloured sleeves, It's all the same ideas, but if I was a collector, rather than having one copy in black vinyl and one copy in yellow vinyl, I'd prefer to have one original, one remixed.
Oh, he's not a bad sort.
Not bad, he's criminal.
Andy Thompson is an A&R man for the FFRR dance label.
Generally, if you format a track which has an initial buzz, which perhaps goes in the 40, say 30, 38, by releasing a hot dance remix, which you know there is market demand for, yeah, of course, you can move that track up. The best example of that probably was the Happy Mondays single, which went straight in, I think, at 30 mark, stayed in the 40 for about 3 or 4 weeks, completely dropped away. Then, because Factory timed it completely right, they had a guy called Paul Oakenfold and a guy called Andy Weatherall remixed the track Hallelujah in a dance floor style. And about 4 weeks later, the track came straight in again to the 40.
Was Oakenfold aware of Factory's marketing strategy?
I wasn't really conscious of Factory marketing the remix the way they did. I thought it was great what they did, because I thought they were just going to use it as a remix, like all record companies. But when I came back from holiday, I saw the record was like top 30 pop, and I was like, wow. So it all kicked off from there, really.
we're seeing now is the influx of an enormous amount of hooded, flared-trousered, paisley, funny hairdo rock bands, such as Happy Mondays, Stone Roses, Candy Flip, Primal Scream. Interesting as they are, I think these are mostly an arena for three guys who are really good at remixing and producing that type of stuff. One of being Andy Weatherall, who produced Primal Scream. The other major one to me is Paul Oakenfold. Here's somebody who's a DJ, who hasn't been doing this very long, who's a humble, great guy, and who can come out with a brilliant thing, and all of a sudden start a new trend.
I've always wanted to get involved in indie dance, indie rock, because I felt that a lot of the records that I was being sent as a DJ, the mixes weren't right for clubs. So when I was offered Mondays, it was just a chance for me to mix the record the way I wanted it for my club, really. Wrote for Luck was the first record I did. It put Happy Mondays in a whole new scene. It's still being played. It was very much an underground record, Wrote for Luck. When you're getting a DJ mixing an indie band, he's going to bring it in line with what's going on in the clubs. If you're not careful, you're going to take the identity away from the indie band. Now, when the record crosses and it becomes a big dance hit and the band are playing, you're going to get a lot of people going to see the band. And when they do all their other stuff, people's going to say, hang on, what's going on here? So the band's going to end up losing their identity, and the new dance punters are going to think this is a load of crap. So it can be a real short-lived thing if the A&R man is not doing his job right. With the Mondays, they grew up and they've been involved in the dance scene for a long time. And they're the first at doing something what they're doing, and they want to go that way. And they're not just people who are jumping on a bandwagon.
So how do record companies choose a remixer? Andy Thompson again.
There's no set formula for choosing specific DJs to remix records. It's basically people who you know, again, who you trust, people who are currently working, doing, current gigs in clubs. There are people who have perhaps just done one remix before, which you particularly like, just a sound that they have to themselves. The remixer's choice in what they do is completely up to them. By choosing a particular remixer, we have given him free rein to create whatever he wants to do.
Was it good enough for you?
Oh, you should know that.
I think the difference in the first commercial 12-inch that is released and the remix is quite marked nowadays. Normally what happens, the 12-inch is released on DJ white label, which will feature 2 or 3 mixes. And again, the first commercial 12-inch will come out and will only feature one of those mixes. Now, through the market hearing 2 or 3 particular mixes being played on radio or in clubs by DJs, they will make a mental note to search out the particular mix that they want, and if it isn't on the first commercial 12, we'll go out and buy the remix. It's basically clever marketing.
Stephen Hague has produced New Order, the Communards and the Pet Shop Boys. How does he feel about remixing?
Remixing as an act, as a device by the record companies, I don't feel that good about it. I think that the recent BPI decision to limit formats to 5 didn't go far enough. I think it should be 3. I think it should be a single, an extended 12-inch, and a club 12-inch. And I think that should be the limitation on it, personally. And that kind of wraps up my feelings about the whole process. I think it's a very cynical thing on behalf of the record company. It's really a marketing device, a marketing approach to kind of exploit the relationship between an artist and his audience. And I find it embarrassing. Not only are you asked to buy the new Tears for Fears single because you like the song, you're asked to buy it because it comes in a special Japanese pack, and it was remixed by so-and-so. And the mixers themselves, I have no qualms with whatsoever, because, they're just like me. We're all just trying
to make a living doing something that we like. Arthur Baker, Shep Pettibone. I mean, there's a lot of people doing work now it's good work. It's an interesting kind of record making, the kind of after the fact type exploration of what else a track has to yield. And my only problem with it, sometimes artistically, is that it's all about clubbing, and often the song and the intention just gets lost. If someone wants to make a living remixing someone else's original recording, I don't have a problem with that at all. It's the business side of it. It's the way those minds are working up there that just puts me off, just because I am so entrenched in this business, and you kind of like to feel that it's hygienic. There's a certain code that laces through everyone's relationship to their work, and when you see it, like in my eyes, being kind of violated or corrupted, then I just don't like to be too much a part of that. I think it's kind of a given that a producer doesn't want to be unhappy with any version of his work going out. But I suppose it depends how much a producer is involved in remixing. I went through a phase where I was doing a bit of it, and found that I didn't enjoy it, and I thought I was good at some elements of it, extended versions, but club stuff, it just didn't interest me enough I don't dance, Let's put it that way. I'm not a dancer, and I don't hang in clubs. I try and stay in touch when I'm in New York at clubs, but it's not really my approach to music. And so in that way, because I do have kind of an idea of why I'm making records and what I have to offer, that when I come up against something I think someone does better than me, then that's who should do it.
David Morales is one of the most prolific remixers to have emerged in recent years.
I remix records of Whitney Houston, the Jacksons, Sheena Easton, and you don't even get to meet these people. Chances are they practically hate what you do anyway. They don't understand what the company asks you to do. They just figure you're doing it because of what you're doing. And some of them might